Hi, I'm Keith Ghostland.
I'm Linda Quinlan.
I'm Ann Charles. It's Tuesday, November 16th. Welcome to All Things LGBTQ. We're taping in Montpelier, which we recognize is unceded Indigenous land. And now let's go to some local headlines.
And aren't there just local headlines? Just when you think you're ready, things happen. Such as Rita, one of our favorite mail carriers. It was announced that after 30 years of getting your packages delivered correctly and greeting you with a smile, she's retiring at the end of November.
We'll miss her.
Oh, won't we just? And if you go on to Front Porch Forum, there's a link to, you can write a little vignette to be put into a booklet to be given to Rita.
Nice.
What people should also know about Rita is she was one of the people responsible for the state song, These Green Mountains.
Ah, really?
Exactly. And then Patrick Leahy decides to announce, much to everyone's surprise, including his staff's, that he's not seeking re-election. And this was after a week and a half ago, Phil Scott said that he had no interest in running for a position in Washington, D.C. What that means for us is we're going to really need to pay attention to the legislative session. Who comes forward as sort of the person who is getting a lot of recognition, and what this might mean for some of our out LGBTQ plus elected officials perhaps wanting to move up to a higher office.
And it's going to be exciting.
Oh,
We have so many good Democratic candidates.
It's going to, well, are there so many that it's going to be a free-for-all?
Yes.
So this is Indigenous People Heritage Month. And I deliberately went out and looked for a trivia question to which I knew I didn't have the answer, because Indigenous history is not necessarily something to which we are attentive. So the question, this was the first LGBTQ plus Indigenous person elected to a state legislature. And an interesting answer coming up.
And no using your Google.
I know. So now it's the Queer Help Wanted section. Out in the Open in Brattleboro has an open position for a health justice organizer. This person will work directly with volunteers and participate in their rural LGBTQ plus Healthy Buddy program. They will work directly with the organizing and programming director. This is a new position, and they are hoping that people will apply no later than 9 a.m. on November 29th. And Zach will have up the contact information for this position. But that's not the only one. The Pride Center of Vermont, Momentum Program Coordinator, and this is a part-time position. The health organizer at Brattleboro is a full-time position with benefits.
Okay.
Important to know. Momentum is a part-time position. They report to the executive director. And for those of us, we know that they're going to be working specifically with the Momentum program, coordinating events, working on the Neighbor to Neighbor program, issues of food insecurity. I lost my place here. Food insecurity, access to healthcare, community networking. And the Pride Center is hoping that they would have their applications by Tuesday, November 30th. And the Pride Center says that they value the leadership of people of color, LGBTQ plus individuals, and strongly encourages people of all traditionally underrepresented identities to apply. However, they also have a position for a health and wellness program director, and this is again a full-time position, 40 hours a week. They're responsible for meeting the grant deliverables, including the HIV prevention, tobacco, and cancer grants provided through the Department of Health. This includes producing HIV prevention and testing programs, primarily focused on the Centers for Disease Control Empowerment Program, GLAM, social network testing programs, HIV testing, referral and linkage to care with embedded PrEP navigation, the Vermont Diversity Health Project, TPOC programming, Thrive, women's programming, GLOW, and training facilitation. Okay, I would need training just to apply for the position.
Yeah.
But, and again, they're hoping that they would get applications by Sunday, November 29th. And for both of those, I had given Zach contact information that would be displayed. You could watch us again on YouTube and write those down. Also at the Pride Center, again, a acknowledgement of their non-binary and genderqueer photo research project. This is a joint project between the Pride Center, University of Vermont. It involves actually several other states, and it's using it's a research project that uses a tool called Photo Voice to support non-binary people between the ages of 18 to 30, building community and sharing their experiences with others through photography and narration. Sounds really interesting.
Yeah.
Project is starting later this year. It will be virtual sessions, each lasting about 90 minutes. There will be 10 sessions that will be created. And there is monetary compensation for participants. And again, Pride Center on their website. The sooner you apply, there was not a date when they were looking at implementing this program, but the sense is they were saying before the end of the year, so the sooner you get in touch with them, the better. Finally, I want to acknowledge an event that's happening at the Radio Bean in Burlington. It's at 8 North Winooski Avenue, think a block north of the UU Church. This is being sponsored by Haas of STDs, House of STDs. It's a night of hairy drag queen antics, raunchy humor, and a queer-tastic time.
I'm there.
I think Linda's going, Ann and I are staying home. It's featuring Donna Rhea, H.P. Vera, Sir Phyllis, Red Rum, excuse me,
Red Rum.
and special guest Andrew LaValle. And the reason I'm sort of promoting it is it's also going to include some fundraising for the Burlington High School GSA, the ones that sponsored the drag show at halftime.
Yeah.
$10 cover, vaccination cards are required for entry. And with that, I'm gonna turn it over to Linda because I know she's got headlines there.
And this is my, I don't know what I wish more people would do vaccinations required to get places, but
Yeah.
that's just my own shtick.
Hold on to that thought for my next segments.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, we have some sad news to start off that a transgender woman in Florida is the victim of anti-trans violence. Jenny DeLeon was found dead outside a house in North Tampa. She's the fourth known transgender murder victim in Florida this year. She was 25 years old.
And this is Transgender Day of Remembrance coming up,
The
And
18th, right?
20th.
Yeah.
And I gave Zach a listing of these are the people we've lost because it's important to remember their names.
Absolutely. And Virginia's new governor-elect appoints several anti-LGBTQ leaders to his transition team. We'll have more about that. Pulse survivor Orlando Torres helped locate the suspect accused of setting fire to a Pulse memorial. Mark Henson was charged with the felony criminal mischief. He is 64 years old and faces up to 5 years in prison. And then a little about Dave Chappelle and Duke Ellington School of Arts, a public high school in Washington, D.C., has announced they are temporarily postponing a fundraiser and event where the school's theater will be renamed after comedian and alma mater Dave Chappelle. So we'll have a little more about that. A Florida woman calls police over a black queer writer's memoir in school libraries. As part of the religious right attack on LGBTQ content in school, she made a police report. Jill Wright found 4 copies of All the Boys Aren't in Blue, a memoir about growing up black and queer by George M. Johnson. And this isn't the first, like it seems like this book, I don't know why, maybe because it's black and queer, has been
Two off the list.
has been brought up quite a bit as a memoir that they want out of libraries. So, out Michigan Attorney General apologized for getting drunk at a tailgate party. We'll have more about that.
Ooh.
Beto O'Rourke will run against anti-LGBT extremist to be the governor of Texas. Former Representative Beto O'Rourke, Democrat, Texas, is running against the present homophobic governor, Greg Abbott. And we know about his bathroom bills and, all of that.
As anti-choice.
Right. All of it. So good luck, Beto. John Gruden sues the NFL for Soviet-style character assassination by sharing his homophobic emails. He resigned after his hateful emails and is now suing the NFL for making them public. So there. And Target has a gay nutcracker this year.
Ooh.
And so here's a picture of here's a picture of Target's gay nutcracker.
We'll have to go to Burlington to see if there's any left on the shelves.
I know. Waylon Smithers will finally get a boyfriend on an upcoming Simpson episode, if anybody watches that. And here's a photo of Waylon Smithers and his new friend. Kristen Stewart is developing a gay ghost hunting reality show. More on that as it develops.
And there's news about her, too. Isn't she announced an engagement or something? Or
I think that was
there's
a while
some
ago.
personal, well, maybe.
I don't know.
Okay.
Maybe. Ava DuVernay highlights the beauty of a diverse queer family. She's been making movies that show the Black experience. On Peacock Home Sweet Home, the first episode features a Black queer woman-led household who exchanged their household with a Greek-American family with opposite-sex partners. Gang of students beat up a 15-year-old, and the beating goes viral. We'll have more about that. Andy Dick. Does anybody know who Andy Dick is?
Yes.
A comedian.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know. But anyway, he was arrested for allegedly hitting his boyfriend with a liquor bottle. The 55-year-old comedian allegedly hit his partner that left a deep wound in his head. The bisexual comedian has a history of drug and alcohol abuse.
He also has a history
So-
of domestic violence, and he was noted at one point in time when he was, quote unquote, having a meltdown of being assaultive to the media and paparazzi.
Oh.
So, yeah.
And this is a really sad story. Gun control advocate Mark Glaze is dead at 51. He's the founder of the modern gun control movement and got deeply involved after the Sandy Hook shootings in Connecticut. He died of suicide on October 31st. He was being held in prison for a DUI. And he's had quite a few issues, I think, previous to this. Coded is the hidden love of J.C. Leyendecker. Did you know who that is? Anyway, I didn't, but I know now.
Okay.
Maybe the audience will know.
I
too.
know, maybe they'd like to know. Is the story of 20th century's leading commercial artist. Screens this week on the Meet the Press Film Festival. He was the leading commercial artist of the 1920s and 30s. So, and apparently he had like all these homoerotic, commercial endeavors, but they were sort of coded, which is why the title is called Coded. But out Colorado Governor Jared Polis is under fire for paying so little in taxes. We'll have more on that if we have time. The first transgender suicide hotline is now up and running in the U.S., and the number is 877-565-8860. And former Trump National Security Advisor Michael Flynn, this is like unbelievable. Do you know this already? This is like, former Trump National Security Advisor Michael Flynn calls for one religion in America. I bet you can guess which religion that would be.
The Trump religion.
And
Wicked.
his insurrection, crucifixion, compares Nancy Pelosi, House Speaker for the Democrats, to Pontius Pilate,
Oh, no.
the man who ordered the crucifixion of Jesus in the Bible. I know, you can't make this shit up.
I know.
Queer icon Lil Nas X is adding yet another milestone to his impressive resume, and we'll have more about that if we have time. So, Ann.
Don't you have that murder of those two lesbians in Norfolk, Virginia?
No,
That horrible story?
no. Oh, you mean, I think I reported on that already. She was shot by,
No, their daughter was being assaulted by her
yes.
boyfriend, and they came out
to protect her.
And they
And
were shot.
shielding her when
And they were shot. Yeah.
They were shot dead, and a neighbor tried to help, and she was shot dead. And she
Right.
has 6 kids, and I
Yeah.
think they have 4 other kids. That's a horrible story.
Yeah,
And maybe why she tried to blot it out.
maybe.
Well, let me start by coughing. In the world headlines, let's begin with a clip of the Rainbow Railroad and what they did in 2020. The Rainbow Railroad's activities in 2020. Let's take a look.
This is Muhammad. When his parents discovered he was bisexual, they tied him to a tree and whipped him. They then outed him to a family member, who was also a police officer, and had Muhammad arrested, imprisoned, and tortured for 25 days. After his release, Rainbow Railroad helped Muhammad find a safe place to hide, away from his family, before relocating him to Germany, where he's now safe and living freely. Muhammad's story, however, is not an uncommon one. In total, 3,451 LGBTQI+ identified people reached out to Rainbow Railroad in 2020. These requests came in from all corners of the globe. From people with diverse sexual orientations, gender identities or expressions, and sex characteristics. Muhammad's story was representative of a few key trends Rainbow Railroad saw in 2020. One being an uptick in state-sponsored violence and police brutality committed against LGBTQI+ people. Rainbow Railroad saw community organizations raided under false pretenses. And, in some instances, accused of spreading the virus or being generative of it. Reports of family-based violence skyrocketed as lockdown measures trapped many LGBTQI+ people in abusive family environments. 33% of all requests for help reported to Rainbow Railroad in 2020 referenced violence and rejection from family members. And this was just one of 8 other common reasons people reached out to Rainbow Railroad. As the COVID-19 pandemic raged on, and despite increased barriers for travel, Rainbow Railroad was able to relocate 75 people to safety across international borders. Rainbow Railroad also continued to provide support to LGBTQI activists around the globe to help create systemic change. Through this all, key investments in monitoring systems were made, which allowed Rainbow Railroad to collect something desperately lacking in understanding the state of global LGBTQI persecution: data. Data that is used to understand emerging trends in persecution of LGBTQI people worldwide, so that programming can be adapted to meet changing needs. Data that is essential for Rainbow Railroad to continue its mission of finding safety for LGBTQI people by whatever means necessary. And all of this couldn't have been possible without you and your ongoing support. To learn more about Rainbow Railroad's activities in 2020 and to get involved, visit our website.
Yeah, that's a really good organization.
It would have been more impressive if it was 1920, but they're okay.
And what they're doing in 2021 is outstanding also, I'm sure. So,
And I'm sure they would welcome your gifts.
now let's quickly go to a couple of stories. I'm going to rush through maybe. Let's start with a picture of trans woman soccer, Argentina's first trans woman soccer player, Mara Gomez at 22. She's posing there. She's going to be part of a 60-second ad, part of the company's Nike's Play New campaign that showcases athletes having joy in sports. My next headline involves FIFA, which hands Mexico a 2-match fan ban for anti-gay chants in Canada and Honduras matches. So they're going to have to play before empty stadiums, a great financial loss. Now let's go to Europe. The MTV's EMAs show in Hungary highlights its support for LGBTQ people. And remember last time I discussed how when they announced it was going to be held in Hungary, they were ambivalent but decided to go ahead. So they did go ahead and turned the ceremony into a very supportive one for LGBTQ people. Lil Nas X was given an award. Kim Petras, the first transgender artist in the awards, was able to perform. But the most significant gesture of support is the Generation Change Award, a new category honoring 5 activists fighting anti-LGBTQ policies around the world. The winners were from Iraq, Nigeria, Brazil, the US, and Hungary. So they've made good on their promise to recognize the LGBTQ community in Hungary. The head of the award dedicated the show to Hungary's LGBTQ community. So, my next headline, Spain extends IFV to single women and LGBTQ folks. It was free for heterosexuals, and now it's going to be free for single women and LGBTQ plus individuals.
Can you imagine any health care at all being free?
Yeah, well, you're
Medicare for all.
going back to the U.S. now.
Wow.
Let's go to London. An LGBTQ community center is opening in central London, right near the Tate Modern on the bank side. And they polled all the constituents. They call it a pop-up because it's only going to be open for 6 months as they test the waters and see how they can expand it and make it permanent. So that's good news. Strange news from also from England. The BBC quits the Stonewall LGBTQ diversity program over impartiality concerns. BBC pulled out of the Diversity Champions, which is run by the British LGBTQ plus organization Stonewall, they said that if they, Stonewall does wonderful things, and this program in it also is very forward-looking. And they regret that they pulled out, citing that they weren't sure if they could remain impartial, and they have their standards. But the real rub, I think, is BBC had been under significant pressure to withdraw from Stonewall's plan, not least by a 10-part BBC podcast. And in this podcast, the host claimed that the charity's influence was preventing some BBC staff from airing gender-critical views. They're afraid of, I think gender-critical views should be not aired, but that's and I think that's the view of many people. Well, let's turn to a more positive story involving gay mountaineers who take the rainbow flag to the highest peaks.
Oh, that was a great, do you have the picture?
Yes.
That was a great picture.
There they are on Mont Blanc. The highest peak in the Alps. There they are posing with the flag. They're going to go to the 7 summits.
Everest.
Everett is on the agenda. Interestingly, the founder grew up in Kazakhstan, and he talks about the many challenges of Kazakhstan and how mountaineering has freed him. And he no longer lives in Kazakhstan. That probably helps too. One more European headline, if I may. The Bulgarian presidential candidate who was charged with storming the he's been charged with storming the LGBTQ office, and ambassadors all over the world, including the United States, have condemned him. And he was sentenced for violating the public order during Sophia's first gay pride in 2008. Now, if convicted, he'll face 5 years in jail. So that's the news. I have a clip of a Hungarian movie that I will show you later in this show. It's called Colors of Toby. And I can continue.
No, well, we're going to move to Keith now.
Okay.
Keith.
And you're hoping I'm going to have positive news, and yeah. So December 1st is International World AIDS Day. And there is going to be an intergenerational evening with pause storytellers, art activities, and a community dialogue discussing HIV, 6 to 8 p.m. at the Fletcher Free Library Pickering Room. Masks, please. And you can contact Vermont Cares if you want more information. Related to this, there was a news story that was just released over the weekend of a woman in Argentina whose own immune system seems to have reversed infection with HIV.
Wow.
So she is only the second person.
There was one in England?
No, those two had,
they had
brain stem.
transfusions or something.
There have been 2 people, one in San Francisco and this woman in Argentina, whose own immune system seems to have been effective in fighting HIV. So there's definitely going to be more follow-up. We're going to be watching that. Associated with that, GLAAD is right now putting on a major push that the CDC finally remove the last restrictions on men who have sex with men being held to a different standards than anyone else who is a blood, organ, or plasma donator. Please. And this just made my little pea brain go snap, crackle, pop. Dennis Prager, who is a conservative writer and radio host, most recently interviewed on Newsmax, that should give you a warning right there, made this statement During the AIDS crisis, can you imagine if gay men and intravenous drug users, who were the vast majority of people with AIDS, had they been treated like pariahs the way that non-vaccinated are now?
Yeah.
I read that. That is just
That is-
horrible.
I'm sorry. Yeah, we lived through this. Can I give you some dissenting opinion here?
I mean, that just shows no historic.
Total ignorance.
Let's
and
rewrite
bias.
there
Yeah.
we go. So, looking at COVID and the unvaccinated, LGBTQ plus people, we're being vaccinated at a higher rate than anybody else. We are being
Good for
vaccinated.
us.
We're being vaccinated at a 91% rate.
Wow.
That's 20 points above the sort of cisgendered mainstream. And even when you take into account gender, racial identity, some of the other factors that you think might change the numbers, it doesn't make that much of a difference. And part of the theory is that the LGBTQ plus community, from living through HIV and AIDS and all of those treatment modalities and PrEP, the vaccination for hepatitis B, we are more used to listening to medical information and understanding what's being told to us and the impact of it. So, but Anthony Fauci came out with even though you're being vaccinated, you are at greater risk if you're in a house of worship.
That's good reason not to go.
Hotels, bars, cafes, restaurant, indoor concerts. All of the places where it's large people taking masks off, close contact. That's when you're being put at risk. Now, there has been a real debate here in Vermont recently about really pushing for a mask mandate. That it's time that we say, yes, indeed, indoors, you need a mask, socially distanced, you need to use precautions. Becca Ballant says that she believes that the best thoughts are not always from the loudest voices in the room. All of us are experiencing COVID-19 differently. She wants to hear from you. She wants to hear your stories. How has COVID-19 been impacting you and your family? And Zach will have had her contact information up. And why this is important is what was again released today, late breaking news. Governor Scott is allowing the legislature to come back into a special session next week merely to vote on a proposal that municipalities will be empowered to impose a mandate, but it has an automatic April 22nd, 2022 expiration date, and it has to be done by individual municipalities.
So Montpelier can say yes and Barry can say no.
Exactly.
And it'll be lifted April 22nd?
What was part
At the
of
latest.
that was part of his, this is the only thing you can do. Anything else I'll veto, and there has to be a built-in sunset, which is April 22nd, 2022. And this is in response to the real push from the Speaker and the President Pro Tem saying,
And the public.
you need to do more. That what it is that we're doing is not curbing the spread of COVID-19 with the
Right.
unvaccinated, the Delta variant, and our youth who are just now being vaccinated.
And nurses and teachers. I mean, a lot of organizations have been very forthright about urging him to do something
Exactly.
like this.
And the one final comment really quickly about sort of political legislative action, redistricting. There was a proposal that came out from the Special Task Force recommending single-member districts in the House statewide. And there's been a real pushback, and some of it is because some of the two-person districts, the two incumbents would be running against each other. That that the two-person district more accurately reflects the sense of community and sort of their approach to this is how we deal with issues, this is how we support each other. It's not a done deal. You know, the legislature will be deciding when they come back into session in January. They need to hear from all of us whether we do or do not support this. And one of the sort of push me, pull me arguments is that in San Francisco, it used to be citywide elections. And it was, you know, the sort of established political machine that kept getting reelected. And they broke it up into single member districts. So it would be more representative of that community. And that's how Harvey Milk got elected, is the district.
And the Castro.
The district was the Castro and the Tenderloin, and he represented them. So as we're looking at redistricting, is there an opportunity here that we might be able to support more out LGBTQ plus elected officials?
Okay.
I'm done.
That's it for you?
Oh, ain't it just?
Okay. So we have Virginia's new governor-elect appoints several anti-LGBT leaders to his transition team. One of Glenn Youngkin's co-chairs comes from the Heritage Foundation. Youngkin, is it Youngkin? I guess
Yeah,
Youngkin
Youngkin.
opposes gay marriage equality. One of his transitional top officials wrote the legislation that outlawed gay marriage in Virginia for decades. The other helped build the careers and reputations of anti-LGBTQ conservatives such as Mike Pence and Amy Coney Barrett. The transition team is being led by Jeff Goatman as director, but as American Independent News says, several other LGBTQ people are involved in the operations as well. The transition is co-chaired by Kay Coles James.
You meant anti-LGBTQ.
Yes,
people.
anti-LGBT people, who is the former president of the Heritage Foundation, and Senator Steve Newman, Republican, formerly president pro tem of the Virginia Senate. So he's starting off well, don't you think?
I just feel compelled to be optimistic, though. You know, everyone was saying the Democrats, bemoaning the loss of Terry McAuliffe. And I read a thread on Facebook with a person I respect who said that every time there's been a Democratic president, the Virginia gubernatorial race has gone to a Republican.
Correct.
So it wasn't, the Democrats have lost. And a lot of the candidates endorsed by the Victory Fund won. Not all of them.
And it was a much closer race than anyone anticipated. So
Yeah.
what else you got, honey?
Well, that's optimistic.
Yeah, we need a little optimism.
We do? All right. I sort of like the dark, but what can I say? The Duke Ellington School of Arts, a public high school in Washington, D.C., has announced they are temporarily postponing a fundraiser and event where the school's theater will be renamed after comedian and alma mater Dave Chappelle. The school specifically cites his controversial material juxtaposing discrimination against Black Americans with that against non-Black members of the LGBTQ plus community, featured in his latest Netflix special, The Closer, and other performances. While they are still intending to go through with the renaming because Chappelle is one of the most distinguished alumni they have, and the honor was the desire of one of the founders, Peggy Cooper Caffridge, who passed away in 2018. They said that holding off for a few months would be an opportunity for a teachable moment for Chappelle and students at the school. The school said that The Closer has sparked national debate around race, gender, sexuality, and cancel culture. As a learning institution that champions inclusivity, diversity, equality, and belonging, We care very deeply about protecting the well-being and dignity of every member of our student body, faculty, and community.
If I may observe, I don't think Dave Chappelle is going to be
Teachable?
teachable, exactly.
No, but it could be a teachable moment for the students, not for him necessarily. So.
Every time an institution issues a statement such as that, my immediate response is, so what is it that you're going to be offering to your students to give them additional information, to give them another perspective? Oh, this is a teachable moment, okay?
Who's going to teach?
So,
Right.
so how are you going to use that?
Right.
Yeah. All good questions of which I do not have answers to.
It's okay.
Out Michigan Attorney General apologizes for getting drunk at a tailgate party. Ms. Nessel has offered a mea culpa on Facebook, saying, "Before the big game, I attended a tailgate on an empty stomach." She wrote in a lengthy Facebook post that was both sardonic and contrite. "Much to my surprise," she said, "MSU tailgate tend to have more alcohol than food." So I thought it seemed like a good idea to eat 2 Bloody Marys, since as long as you put enough vegetables in them, it's practically a salad.
Really?
There we go.
Earlier this year, she made waves in the queer community by saying she wouldn't take money from the HRC until Alfonso David resigned or was fired. David Alfonso, as we know,
Alfonso David, right?
Yeah. Alfonso David allegedly leaked confidential information about a woman who accused Andrew Cuomo, former governor of New York, of sexual harassment in order to discredit her. So, she sounds like a hoot.
Sounds like she forgot she was an elected official in a public environment.
Yeah, no kidding. And we have, out Colorado Governor Jared Polis is under fire for paying so little in taxes. Apparently, he's very, very wealthy. He was the second or third wealthiest member of Congress. Who knew? Investigative outlet ProPublica publishes they investigate rich people outlet who are not paying their fair share in taxes. According to the source, he didn't pay any taxes in 2013, 14, and 15, and from 2010 to 18, he paid 8.2%, which is less than half of the 19% by someone making $45,000. To be clear, Polis says, he has paid all the taxes he is required to by law.
Loopholes.
Yep.
You just have to be rich enough to use them.
Yeah.
Yeah, otherwise you get slammed. Queer icon Lil Nas X is adding yet another milestone to his impressive resume. He's on GQ cover model. The Grammy-winning Old Town Road singer will grace one of the magazine's 3 Men of the Year covers, with Spider-Man actor Tom Holland and NBA star Giannis Antetokounmpo appearing on the others. GQ unveiled all 3 covers Monday. Lil Nas X, who came out as gay in 2019, spoke about how rap is evolving. And when it comes to LGBTQ issues and queer entertainers, I do feel like this newer generation of rappers who are coming in and the ones who are here are going to reshape their thoughts because change is happening, he told the magazine. There's going to be so many gay rappers. There's going to be more trans people in the industry and whatnot. 10 years from now, everything that I'm doing won't even seem like it was shocking. So,
Good. That's
yes.
encouraging.
That's a positive note.
Yeah.
Okay.
My,
Lest anybody think these stories are depressing.
well, China has launched a transgender medical clinic. That's encouraging, although they're doing a lot of terrible things. There's a lot of terrible things happening there. The LGBT advocacy group that has led many of the country's legal cases to expand LGBT rights announced that it's going to be halting its work. Chinese tech giant WeChat social media deleted dozens of accounts run by university students in July, saying that they had broken Chinese internet rules. After 11 years of operation, Shanghai Pride canceled its annual celebration. However, this transgender medical clinic has opened. So I don't know, obviously the transgender youths are at higher rates of depression, anxiety, and suicide attempts. And so some doctors believe that they're in need of specialized care. So it's a really mixed bag. Emphasis on the downside in China, I would say. And my next headline really doesn't bear a lot of discussion. Justin Bieber, who I learned was reminded is from Stratford, Ontario. So Keith maybe could have done this, but the concern is that he's doing a concert in Saudi Arabia, which needs to be condemned for all the reasons that we know. So a human rights group is calling on him to cancel it. Nicki Minaj had one scheduled and was informed about Saudi Arabia's policy and did cancel hers. So I hope Justin follows suit. Since Linda has made some musical references to Lil Nas X, I have a musical treat to share with you involving the first ever openly LGBT K-pop band. It releases its debut single, Show Me Your Pride. And
What's the name of the movie?
It's a single.
Oh, okay.
So let's take a look at this openly LGBTQ K-pop band.
힘든 밤을 이겨내가며 마침내 또 착한 곳 하여 우리의 낙원으로 무지개 뜬 하늘로 외롭게 싸울 땐 몰랐지 우리란 이름 매울 파리 우리는 우리일 때 없던 길도 만들지
아무리 기본도 잡고서 백날 총질해대도 We are bulletproof, we are bulletproof 또 untouchable 서봐 너의 지배자 함사자 무리가 뜨며 빌드를 정의해 돌려 차별의 시대를 불태워 빛나게 해방돼 보석
좋은 시선으로 널 침몰할 때 혼자라 느껴질 때 내 손을
Love is a love Show me your love 너는 별처럼 빛이 나는 사람이야 Show me your fire Show me your light Show me your pride Come on baby
죽을까고 다짐하고서 옷장 문을 차고 나오니 용감한 날 반기는 옷장 밖에 또 다른 나들 번지 점프 대 앞에 선듯 뛰기 직전이 더 떨리네 용기내 뛰고 나니 뭐야 별거 아냐 재밌네
내일은 내일의 해가 뜬대 오늘 것보다 밝을 거래 숨거나 피하려 하지 않아도 돼 그 밝은 태양은 우리 편이래 눈 뜨기 직전이 어두운 법 어둠에 갇혔다 느꼈다면 우리를 친구라 불러 어두운 네 방에 촛불이 될게
좋은 시선으로 널 침몰할 때 혼자로 느껴질
As I'm sure you observed when you saw it, the cut explores the struggles of being LGBTQ people, including coming out and dealing with homophobia. All members of the K-pop group Lionesses openly identify as part of the LGBTQ community, and on November 1st they released this song that you just heard, which currently has over 28,000 views on YouTube. The music video shows all 4 members wearing animal masks, as you observed, the entire time, until one of them takes it off at the end. In an interview with TW News, the band's leader, Dae Jung, said the song is a motif of We Are Us. The team's name means Lionesses of the Savannah Plains. This I didn't quite get. It's easy to think that the apex of the African ecosystem we have seen through mass media is a male lion with a rich mane. But in the end, the ruler of the plain is actually a lioness. It's a group of lionesses in charge of hunting the herd. Bet you didn't know that.
No.
When each LGBTQ person fights against the world, we can be strong. Our music conveys the message we are struggling. We will be your group. Together with the group, we can overcome. Despite the increase in LGBTQI representation in South Korean media, the community still faces discrimination and stigma in the country, which I could enumerate, but that would diminish the joyful effect of Show Me Your Pride.
Okay, we need to get to Keith and his trivia question now, Ann.
Okay, can I just read my headlines? I do have a movie clip.
Well, you better, we only have 3 minutes.
Let me just tell you quickly, it's from Hungary, it's a documentary. It's called Colors of Toby, about a 16-year-old Hungarian teen who transitioned. So let's take a look at Colors of Toby.
Ugye kérdezték, hogy neked hány gyereked van? 3. Fiúk vagy lányok? És én itt lefagyok. Is. Na itt kérted meg, hogy vágjam sömére a hajadat. Itt először vágtam le.
És milyen boldog voltam. Az összes lányos képeimet szereted.
De mennyire zavart téged? Hát az is te voltál.
Nem.
De nagyon jó ló.
Én nem akarom, hogy téged bántson bárki is. És akkor mutass már képet róluk, és akkor tudod is, és ő Tóbiás. Nem haragszol, ha ez nekem még olyan furcsán hangzik.
I like Colors of Toby.
And that does use up our time. So the trivia question, and I deliberately looked for something that we wouldn't know because we really don't pay a lot of attention to indigenous heritage and history.
Right.
This was the first LGBTQ plus indigenous person elected to a state legislature, and it was in 2012. Susan Allen, a Rosebud Sioux person, became the first openly lesbian indigenous person elected to the state legislature in Minnesota. And she was elected to the House. And when she was interviewed about what it meant to be a legislator, to be elected, this was her comment. I don't want to be assimilated. That comes both as a Native American and a two-spirit person, and then as LGBT. I resist the motivation that I can somehow only be accepted if I'm part of the mainstream.
Yeah.
And she continues to get reelected.
Excellent.
Good.
So with that, Linda,
All right, I say, remember to resist.